Greetings and salutations, YouTube. Welcome to my first multi-part video. Well, second, technically, if you want to count the Tong video, but this is actually probably the oldest project that I have in my shop. This is my sword. It's actually two different swords if you want to get really, really technical about it. This right here, you've actually seen me working on. And this, along with this, and these are my scabbard build for the sword that I already made. These are probably the first things I've ever forged. They are the first things I've ever forged welded, guaranteed, hands down. But they're not for the current sword that you will see in this video. I'm not entirely sure why I showed you that, but swords to come. This is my current sword. So this is the blade you'll see me forge in this video. All right. It is 5160, purchased steel. I purchased it as a bar, so I had known steel. This sword specifically, I had plans to go on the show Knife or Death with. This was the sword that I was going to forge out for that show. Once I got word that I was going to be on the show, then my dog walked into my shop and she's not allowed. Which, you know, they didn't give me a whole lot of time from confirmation to had to go. And as you'll see in the episode, I ran into a slight tang issue. And if you looked at my Instagram, if you're following me on Instagram, you'd have already seen that. And so I had, they basically asked me to ship it out, and that's when the tang got burnt off, and I'm like, well, that ain't happening. So I had to go with my backup and borrow one from the club, Denver Historical Fencing Academy, if you're curious which one. So yeah, but you'll watch me forge this out. Also releasing soon is this video. This is my pommel. A little bit up close and personal, so you guys can see that. Yep. So this is the pommel. This is a beast, but it's obviously going to get ground down a little bit and drilled and pressed. But you'll watch me forge this thing out with the monster hammer that I got from Old Hickory Forge. So yeah, you'll actually get to see this thing in action, which is nice. I actually purchased this one before I made this one. So they're progressively smaller, and this one is one that I'm going to make by myself. It's an old Harbor Freight anvil hammer, and I'm going to turn it into one of these. But this is the crossguard. You can tell that all I basically did with it was cut off a piece of bar stock and drift the centerpiece. It's not cleaned up. It's nothing's happened to this at all because it was just forged and then realized that I could not use it. But the sword itself it's going to be a really, really simple sword. It is an Oakshot 18, or the plan was for it to be an Oakshot 18. So there's going to be a fuller running from about here to about here, a single fuller. I had to make a fullering tool for that. In this video, there's not a whole lot. I basically forged the distal taper and the side taper. I worked a little bit on the bevels on the front, but not very much. Now this is going to be a little bit different than some of my other videos for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, I don't really talk in it. This was a production video. I was trying to whip this thing out and as fast as possible that I could. And so I don't talk, I don't explain what I'm doing. I'm going to actually be voicing over it, which is not something I plan on doing on a regular basis, but just to give you an idea, because again, I had no plans for this video to be going on YouTube as an instructional video. It's still not going to be an instructional video by far. First sword, not terribly instructional. And two, it's again, I don't talk in it. The other thing is that you will see, don't really want to call him my apprentice, I'm not that good, but Helper. He's a gentleman, a son of a friend of mine who wanted to learn about blacksmithing and wanted me to teach him. So you'll see him in the background working on stuff. He was working with me on one of the days that I was forging this, and he was practicing hammers and basically making stakes, but I didn't put any of that in the video. But you'll see me in the pommel video, you'll hear me explaining to him what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So that one's kind of an instructional video as well. Because I had to upset this so I can get this nice fat end right here, and then I had to narrow it down so I can get the narrow end, because the pommel is going to go basically, if you were to hold the sword, it's harder with a short tang, but if you were going to hold the sword up here, the pommel would be right about here. So that's how that works. So hope you enjoyed the video. This was not even built, so you'll notice that it's on the flat concrete. As I said in my earlier release video, this is old footage. I was going to release it all at once, but that's not going to happen, so I wanted to give you guys something. So a lot of the footage that's going to be coming out in the next week or two is going to be older footage, so lots of things in my shop are going to change. Lots of things in my shop are going to change regardless, because there's so many upgrades that I want to do, but you get the point. So hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. Alright, so here I am, forging out the tip. You can see, as I twist it around, I'm mostly trying to get the profile. I'm not quite working on the distal taper yet. That will happen later. Let's speed it up. I really wish I could forge this fast, but I can't. And this was filmed over 3 days, so you'll see multiple wardrobe changes. All done on a coal forge. That's my beast hammer. 3 point something, no, about 4 pounds. Specifically commissioned to move some serious material. You'll also watch me use it in the pommel video. I commissioned it before I got the treadle hammer, but still works. So here's about where I stop profiling, and I started working on the bevels a little bit, mostly to kind of get that distal taper that I wanted, and I don't want it too thin for the heat treat. I'd rather grind to the point than try and forge to a point, because they burn a lot. Back to the beast. The other hammer was the very first hammer that I had. It's an old farrier's hammer. It came with the handbill, the stand, a pair of tongs that you probably won't see me use. And that hammer moves some serious metal. It's seriously heavy, but it moves some serious metal. I'm trying really hard not to forge it too terribly cold,
Again, when I was originally forging this sword, and for all the stuff that I forged, really, this sword was going to be put through crazy abuse. I mean, some things swords were never really designed for. I mean, even when you take them into battle, they were never designed to hack through 300-pound blocks of ice. It's not something that's really done. So the fact that this sword had plans to do that meant that I was trying to be very extra special careful about the heat on this. And there's a couple areas while watching through this video, I'm like, is that too cold? And I can't really remember if it was or not. Through all this part of it, you can tell not terribly cold at all. Except for shaping. On to the treadle hammer. Yes, that is shaking the entire concrete. This is about the first time I've used it, I think. It is not bolted down either, because it's not in its final position. So it's basically butting up against the house. Which I didn't really care about, because we were due to repaint the house anyway. As you can tell from the really ugly paint job. And again, this is twice speed. Don't miss. It does look a little cold here, but it's also bright sunshine, so I'm not 100% certain. I'm also not hitting terribly hard right now. I'm mostly just straightening. Here I flipped it over, so I'm now actually holding the part that I actually already forged to finish up that taper. This is a 1/4 by 2-inch bar stock, I want to say. And I wanted the 2 inches to be basically at the widest point. So I knew I can order that size, and after I've finished with the fullers and the bevels, even if it was shorter than that size, I would widen it out. But because I ordered that wider size, I knew that I can get the length, because I can only order it in 3 feet bar stock lengths, and I believe I ordered this through McMastercar. But it worked out. I got the profile that I wanted. I was a little worried about the tang. I wasn't entirely sure that the tang was long enough. And it turns out that it didn't matter, as you'll see. Again, forging it down to width, and then maintaining a slight distal taper. And right now I am basically making everything the same width. As we get into the base of the sword, I'm going to go back to the anvil and profile the tang. Having used the treadle hammer today, when it's all nailed down, works much better. So here I am, back to the anvil with the farrier's hammer. I hadn't made any rounding hammers yet. That one's about 2 pounds. It's nice for shaping. You can see that the head is about to fall off, which is rather annoying. I really wish I could hammer that fast. And cue head. Well, there we go. I don't even blink. I'm in production mode right now. I just basically drop the handle, grab my other hammer, and just go back. Off camera I fixed it, so it's back to normal. I don't like using the cross peen because at this moment in time the cross peen is not dressed correctly, so it doesn't hit right, and it likes to twist in your hand. I've since fixed that, but hacking away. I've sped it up 400% because there's a lot of whacking. I wanted to take the tang down to about 3/4 of an inch at the top. And keep in mind that this is a two-handed sword that I'm making here, so it's designed to be used with, two hands. That seems stupid. But I wanted to make sure I get that tang out long enough, and you'll actually watch me measure it on the side of the anvil here a few times. I have a chalk mark on the back of my anvil. And that chalk mark is there specifically so I can make sure that I have the right length that I need, because it has to go through the guard, it has to go through the two-handed grip, and also has to go through the pommel long enough that I can actually peen the end. So with all of that, I had to seriously work it, and there's a lot of forging going on here, because it's going from 2 inches to 3/4 of an inch, and all the way down to, I think the smallest I got it during this forge. There you go, right there, I'm measuring. And the smallest that I've got it was a little over 1/4 of an inch. And there you see I'm profiling it down to almost that right there. Measuring again. It's still not long enough. Alright, so realizing that I'm not going to be able to forge it down a little bit more, I take up some of the meat up on the top of the blade, and I just basically make the entire blade shorter. It was really my only option at this moment in time, because I wanted to keep it one homogeneous piece of steel. I didn't want to weld onto a tang. I didn't want to introduce those kind of flaws into it, which is kind of funny given what happened. All of that. So here I am again, and it's somewhere in here during these couple of heats where it went south. And there's me thinning it down again. It got way too thick, and so I really need to make a straight pane, because that cross pane just pain in the butt to do that with. Or a fuller, one of the two. I need to make a lot of stuff. That's a really, really fast hammer hand when you watch it 400%. So there we go. I'm like, almost there, and then I had this bright idea. Let's normalize it.